Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to an exciting Vobes One-Eyed Kenobi Showbie with me on a Tuesday, the 30th of November 2021. Live show to make up actually for yesterday because I was away with the lovely Julia. I was at a little soiree, I suppose you might call it, of friends and things, celebrating Julia's 40th birthday. And it was a lovely time. Thank you very much for all the well wishes and all of that. I'm sure Julia, who will be here tomorrow, will be able to say all of that in person. So I'll save her I'll save all of that for her, which will be fantastic. I hope you're all well out there in the cold and wind and what have you. Did you suffer the storm over the weekend and all that wind and what have you? Did you get any damages? Has anything terrible happened to you? Are you still with us? Are you still watching? Thank you very much, and appreciate all the people who've turned up this evening unexpectedly to watch tonight's show, which is grand. Now I've been thinking about this for a couple of days or so, and I know that lovely Julia is saying, "Oh, Richard, you can't do it. You can't do it." Mainly because I think the lovely Julia has the fear of missing out, like a number of people who do. Who said, "I want to be there for you and help with the show and be doing all the thing, but if you do this every day, it's going to be a nightmare, not just for you, but for everybody." And that's probably true. But I thought from tomorrow, just in the weekdays, as a line-up for Christmas. Now, I'll get to that. A line-up for Christmas, I thought it'd be quite fun to do a show every night, apart from the weekends. One needs to have some time off, and the weekends is a good time to do it. Now, if you don't happen to come along and you can't make the show, of course, don't forget you can replay the show. Just join us on the days you want to. Don't feel compelled by any means to come on the days when I'm actually doing it live. But I thought it would be like my Christmas Advent. Every day I'd open the door and there we would have something. I don't know what. I've got to think about it. I put it off to the very last minute. I've been procrastinating how I'm going to do it. But hopefully tomorrow there'll be something. And it may get better as we get towards Christmas and see what it is. But the thing that went through my mind about this whole process is, as somebody mentioned in there, I don't like Christmas music. And do you know what? Although Christianity is, of course, the UK's, or England particularly's, main religion, and of course there are other people who have since come here and have got their own little religions, but it's been Christianity has been our main religion. We have the Church of England, of course, for, I don't know, over 1,000 years or whatever it is. Then I think it's important that we celebrate that because unfortunately, there are those people who are desperately trying to get rid of Christmas, want to call it the winter season or the festival season or the holidays and all of that, as if, well, what could that possibly mean? Now, I know that before Christianity, of course, there were all sorts of pagan celebrations which were based on the seasons and the way things were grown and the movements of the sun and nature and all of that. And Christianity most likely adopted some of that and decided, we can put these events that we have in our calendar bang on the same events that happened in the past with the pagans. And so I think it's very important that we celebrate all of that, not just give it a euphemism. However, the commercialization of Christmas, I think, is a bit bizarre. So I don't intend to play any Christmas music or do the commercial thing. I'm not, at the same time, not intending to do the religious thing either. So there won't be babies in mangers and wise men and all of that. But I just think rather than say it's just the holidays or the or whatever you want to call it, the winter season or the festival or all of that. We can call it Christmas. It's been Christmas all my life. I've only ever known it as Christmas. I've never been to church over the Christmas period. I would think that would be quite hypocritical to go to church only at Christmas. If you are somebody who is religious and you go to church all year round, then I think that's absolutely fantastic and well on you, good on you. But those people who just go to church at Christmas, I don't really see the point. I mean, I go to churches quite a lot in my day job, in part of celebrating England and its history and exploring this wonderful country. And that's quite enough for me. I love the churches. I think they're absolutely fantastic. We should keep them. We should celebrate them. We should go and spend time in them. We should think and cogitate and meditate inside churches. They hold communities together. They have done in the past, and I think they're absolutely essential. But I don't think you have to be religious-minded to understand that, because many of these churches have been built on, as I said before, sites that were older than Christianity itself. And so these places may have been moot points. They may have been meeting points. They may have been where pagan rituals took place, where Neolithic people came together for talks and advice and sharing ideas and all of that. We don't really know that much, but we know that these sites are older than Christianity itself in the main, apart from obviously sort of very new churches and all of that. And so I think it's very important that as we get to Christmas, we should definitely celebrate the fact that it's Christmas, whether you are and whether you want to take that as Christ's Mass, which I suppose is what it is, or whether you want to take it as pagan. I don't want to leave anybody out, but I don't want to give it a euphemism name. I want to call it what it is. Anyway, so I don't want to have the commercial stuff with all the, I can't use commercial music anyway in this because we'd get a copyright strike. But every time you go into the supermarkets or any place like that, you get the same music from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, even the 60s and the 50s, don't you? White Christmas and all of that. Now, you may be somebody who loves all that sort of stuff. You may be somebody who says, without that, it's not Christmas. Without that sort of commercialization bubbling around in the background, it isn't. Maybe that's what you do. Or maybe you're somebody who wants to put on those carols, and you have to have the carols singing in the background. So I'd be interested over this next period to find out what it is that makes Christmas for you. Now, you may also be a bit like me when it comes towards Christmas, a bit of a bar humbug. That's not to say that I'm like Scrooge and I'm happy to celebrate, etc., what have you, but I also find for me it's a lovely time to withdraw a little bit. As my children got older and in my marriage, when we split up, and the children would go off to perhaps my wife for Christmas when they were smaller and younger, I would often spend Christmas alone. It never bothered me because for a while I was into my writing and I could do lots of writing. More recent times have been going out doing videoing on Christmas Day or editing and things like that. And as my children have got bigger and now have left home and are all independent and they've got their families, they have no such need for their father to come round. But sometimes we do. So, it's a flux situation. And I quite like that. So sometimes it's quite nice to withdraw. Sometimes it is quite nice to go and meet up and celebrate and all the rest of it. And I think for everybody, Christmas is a period at the end of the year that you can celebrate something, even if it isn't the religious thing itself. Lots of people out there chatting away, which is fantastic. Lovely to see you. Thank you very much for doing that. I shall read some of your comments, of course. And I have got various other talking points in tonight's show. We're only going to do an hour if we can. And I may have to dash out the back halfway through because I've had an upset stomach, actually. But we'll get onto that in a minute. So Jackie Lowe says, I go to church at Christmas and ring the bells and sing in the choir. I'm sure he understands me and doesn't mind me at all. And I think that's, it's everyone to their own, really. I mean, I don't quite understand why people would only go at certain events and why not more regularly, but it may be something to do with the community. or lack of the community. I think going to church, if you like going to any club, where you've got the social aspect, I think that's really great. But nobody, I think this day and age, nobody wants to sit in the cold and listen to somebody lecturing them about something in Old English, in a language that doesn't really speak to them anymore. If the community is all welcoming and you're getting on and doing exciting things and doing lovely things, part of whatever it is, then I think that's great. I think that's what it should be. It shouldn't be this sort of somewhat removed thing where you go and an ordeal to be told you are a sinner and you must never do anything else. But if it's all inclusive and you feel welcomed and you make contacts and make friends and all of that, then it's got to be good, hasn't it? Hasn't it? I mean, I'm making that assumption. I'm not really a member of any group in real life. I'm a member of the Bold Explorer group on Facebook, but I don't like those sort of things. I don't like the way that our world has all gone online, and I've taken myself more and more offline, even if it means that I'm on my own a lot more. We can talk about that if you like. Colonel Cragratty says, very strange Vobering on a Tuesday instead of a Monday, soon to be followed by Wednesday session. My body clock is all confused. I'm sorry about that. It is a strange time, and I don't know what to say about that, really. I'm just going to say, well, I'm doing these shows as I said. Mr. Bocky says, talks, advice and sharing ideas. That'll be here then. Yes, that is the nature partly of the Vobes Show, is to talk about things, share things. Don't forget you can give me a call, 0793 4746 790. There won't be any videos in tonight's show because it's a bit of a surprise show, and some people who've sent some videos in may not be around to see their video being shown. So I thought it was a bit unfair if I start showing the videos that people have sent in. We've got a couple of videos, but I'll be putting them in on tomorrow's show with the lovely Julia. So that should go down quite well, hopefully. Ray of Hope says, no Christmas music. That's messed up my next video. Ray, your music, always welcome, no problem. I'm talking about wall-to-wall Christmas music for the sake of it. It's lovely what you do, and we desperately want to see it. So bring it on. And I know you've actually sent something in. That will be on tomorrow's show, if that's okay. Mark Burgess, he's talking to Daniel Watkins. Jackie HW says, the UK has a Judeo-Christian heritage. It is what our laws, etc., are based on. And that, yes, I guess that's true. And I mean, everything is based on what has gone on before, and our religious and the way we believed in things, and we brought the church to the head of that belief. Is obviously. I'm talking rubbish now, aren't I? Let me start that again. Yes. Yes, you're quite right. But there is, of course, the common law, the laws that were made as you go along, where things are tried out in court, which I think is quite unique to Britain, or definitely England, whereas many other countries have rules, and we seem to be going down that way. But in Britain, we had some basic rules, which maybe have a religious bent, like do not kill, don't covet the other person's wife, don't nick my stuff, make sure you watch the Vobes Show religiously, all of that kind of stuff. But also then we have those laws that are made as a result of Vobes versus so-and-so, when something has gone to court and then a new precedence has taken place because there wasn't a rule or any finding before that. So it is a mixture of a number of things, I think. Let's see what else let's just scroll down here to Kerry Baldwin says, Christmas is about celebrating with my family, and I am hoping we actually get one this year. Well, that is a very good question. And Boris, of course, was speaking earlier today, and the question is, do you believe him? He was saying that he hoped that Christmas will be fine, but on the same time, he's also saying, I'm not going to rule anything out. So he's sort of staying on the fence, basically. So you just don't know where you are with this new variant that's coming along, and we're all back to the face mask. But I'm trying not to talk about all of that unless things get really grim. I mean, there is so much scaremongering going on in the world, and I don't want to do any scaremongering in this show. I want people to feel relaxed. Even though we may debate certain things, I'm not saying anything is right or wrong at the moment, unless I get all wound up with a lot of passion and what have you. Daniel Watkins says, feel like I don't want to be here anymore. Oh, I'm not sure why that is. Why? What's the matter with Daniel? Sean O'Brien says, I don't like Christmas movies. No, I'm not keen on Christmas movies either. I think mainly because, and I'd hope this doesn't upset anybody from the USA, I find the American movies not very British. I think there are things that certain countries do, and they do them well for their country. So I think American movies do Christmas movies brilliantly for America. But for me, still hanging on to Englishness particularly, I find all of that just doesn't really talk to me. I don't like really seeing, as you might see in American movies, these Christmas Santas all dressed up and, you know, ringing their bells on the streets. I don't know, it seems to be too commercialized, and the essence of what it is all about imagery for commercial purposes and not anything else. And I don't know, there's something about that, whereas but I think it's great for America. Whereas where, you know, if something is typically English, it speaks to me, and I'm trying to hold on to as much of the Englishness, because I think after the war, the Second World War, by the way, I'm just to make sure, we were bombarded, were we not, by a lot of Americanisms, and we've brought that into our culture, and there's obviously no going back. Just as we've got a load of other cultures that have given us all sorts of things, and it's become a bit of a mishmash. And everybody is entitled to feel whatever they think about that. I'm trying to, I suppose, get back before all of those things became just the norm, and try and find my roots, I suppose, in my Englishness, which back in the 60s and 70s when I was growing up, there seemed to be whilst obviously that was after the war, there seemed to be a little bit more about it. It seemed to, may not have been, you know, my perception may be different, but it seemed to be a bit more English. Over the years, we've seemed to have just, I don't know, lost so much of what Englishness stood for, and now, you know, I may well get shouted down for looking back to try and find what it is and bring some of it back again in my life. I'm not trying to put it into anybody else's life. But Christmas movies, yeah, they don't do very much for me. Sean O'Brien says, I do like Doctor Who at Christmas. I'm afraid Doctor Who, after it finished and then it came back, you know, for me, John Pertwee was the only Doctor Who that was worth writing home about. So it was all good. Mr. Mocky says, Doris is saying nothing as per Biddy usual. Doris, not sure what you mean by that. Jackie says, true, but the fundamental basis is still here. Patrick Moses was in Refugee, says David Vad. Patrick Moraz was in Refugee. I don't know what that means. Patrick Moraz was. Do you mean was a refugee? Sometimes I read a lot of these things out of context, so I have no idea what you're talking about. Ron Langley says, it doesn't matter if you're quiet, Daniel, as long as you're here with the Vobesters. And Senara's Ash Tree says, you're more likely to be lectured about welcoming refugees these days. Oh, yes, or not welcoming them. What else have we got? Jeff and Mandy, nice to see you. Thanks for coming along. Jeff and Mandy say, I just lost you. Where are you? We should have a Vobes choir. Come on, you Vobes. A Vobes choir. That would be quite jolly, would it not? A Vobes choir. And Smoth says, you only have to look at different Christian countries to realise the biggest cultural influence is the genetic group in that place. I'm sorry if anyone is too dumb to understand that simple fact. And David says, what about doing some ironmongering? Yes, what about it? We could all do with some ironmongering. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that either. Have a slurp of coffee. That would be the best thing. Right. So, what I want to talk about in today's show, I was watching something earlier today. I can't remember where I watched it. Is that, are you happy? Are you happy? This might go into something we were just talking about, or what I was just talking about. Are you somebody who is totally happy and immersed in going in this digital world, or are you somebody who is a bit unsure about where it's all going and still, what's the word I'm looking for, still looks back, still pangs for the analog world? Now, by that, I don't necessarily mean, you're going to have a Super 8 camera instead of a camera on your phone. But I suppose what I mean by this, in this digital world where everything is just becoming more digital and more easier, and you're less involved, and it's more taken away from you, less hands-on. We seem to be progressing. We're a brilliant species, the human species, aren't we? We're able to come up with these incredible innovations that help us do things. But I'm sort of on the edge, really, with this, because everything is going online. We're talking about the potential of a cashless society. I gather that Sainsbury's have opened a store in London. I think Amazon have already done this. A store in which there are no cashiers and everything is done digitally. So there's cameras in the store, and it recognises what you take off the shelf and put into your basket, and it touts up a virtual basket as you grow up. Now, the reason for this is, I guess, or what they're saying is, it eliminates queues, so that you don't waste any time going along, and you don't have to talk to somebody at the counter and say, "Oh, have a nice day. How are you?" "No, I'm all right." "Oh, it's a nice hairdo you've got there." "Oh, thanks very much. Where do you get that dress from?" "Oh, I got it from down the road at Marks and Spa." "Oh, it's very nice, that. What have you done? Are you growing a beard these days?" "Yeah, I thought I had a beard because it looked a bit nicer." "Have you changed your glasses?" "Yeah, no, I've changed my glasses." "Oh, I haven't seen you in here for a while." It stops all of that. Because you can just get stuff off the shelf, and basically, the only other people will be other people like you in the shop, who you won't have time to talk to because you'll be rushing through. These cameras will be watching everything you do, picking stuff up, bunging it into a virtual basket. And then at the end of it, you just swipe your credit card, and you can walk out. And presumably there will be some members of staff. Somebody's got to fill up the shelves, or perhaps they'll just do that eventually by robots and drones and things. I worry about that we are very much taking away human interaction with all this marvellous digital stuff. But we're taking away whilst none of us like standing in a queue, but we don't half like moaning. There's nothing better than if you're in a queue, than to stand in here and go, "Oh, what's taking them so long? How long have you been in here? Have you been in here?" I don't know. The inefficiency of this store. I'm going to complain, "Oh, yes, I'm going to..." That's the English way. That's what... we get a certain pleasure about moaning and groaning and grumbling. "Oh, come on. Why didn't you have the money ready when you got there? You've only got 2 items. And now, oh, don't tell me. And oh, no, look, you've got the voucher. You've got the voucher. And now the sales assistant doesn't know what the voucher is worth." We have a phone call, ladies and gentlemen. Let's find out who's calling in on the Vobes Show. Good morning. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening, even.
Welcome.
And welcome. There we are.
Sean from London.
Hello, Sean. Lovely to hear from you. Thank you for calling.
I'm just thinking, I'll find out about this cashless place. I might go and do a video about it.
Yes, do, because there'd be nobody to stop you filming inside.
Because I've seen, there'll probably be people there trying to fix the computers.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there'll be somebody there to make sure that you put a mask on, although there's no cashiers and staff in there.
And that you've paid for the 5p bag.
And yeah, exactly. But I mean, are you somebody who's frightened of this, or scared of this, or worried, or concerned, or any other adjective you can think of that illustrates?
I am one of these people that will go to a checkout if the queue in front of me is quite small.
Right.
But I find people have lost the art of having a brief conversation, he said, while thinking he'll still be in 10 minutes' time having a chat. But those small chats, oh, how have you been? How's your dog? I haven't seen you in the park for a while. Is everything all right?
Exactly. I mean, I think that there is a number of people, particularly old people, but I don't want to be cliche about it. I'm sure there's a lot of young people who live on their own, or they live with people who they see all the time, but they don't have any other human contact. And I think sometimes going out shopping is at least you can have those very simple conversations that you said that just reminds you that you are part of the human race.
Well, a few things. Because I live in one of the most depressed cities in the world, so they say. There's so many people here, but nobody talks to each other.
Yeah.
And somebody in our house moved here from Bournemouth. No, from Eastbourne. And he's been here for a month, and he's gone. And he was like, I just don't get it. The place is too fast. There's no community. You work all day. You come home. You have food. You go to sleep. You go back into work. And he wanted that thing of finishing at 5, might pop down and play a bit of sport at 6, go and meet some friends at 7:30. So he's given up a high-paid job to go back to the seaside because he's valued that the work-life balance is a bit more important.
Yeah, I completely concur with that. When I lived in London for a while in my younger years, and we're talking like 30 years ago, and I found London, although there were loads of people, it was the loneliest place. It was the most lonely experience I've ever had. I was what do you call it when you lodge I was lodging in this place, and I did my training at mime school and what have you. And then in the evening, and I had a security job, but there were periods when I didn't have work afterwards, and you'd think, oh, okay, I'll go out somewhere, and you start to think, well, where shall I go? If I go to a restaurant, I look a bit like Billy No Mates, having a meal on my own. I don't fancy going to the cinema on my own. I could go to the pub. Oh, and then you just look like,
But the thing is that interaction with people. So something strange happened to me this afternoon, and I'm just putting it down to the fact that I didn't sleep very well for last night and the night before. But I was walking down the street, and all of a sudden I just thought, I just want to burst out crying.
Really?
What the hell am I doing here?
Yeah. No, well, I can understand. But I mean, we all go through personal crisis. But if you feel alone,
I've come to the realization that for me, an allotment is not really about growing the vegetables. It's about the community,
right,
surrounding it.
Yes, having somebody to talk to and compare notes and spend a bit of time,
or sort of, even if it's we need to dig up the path and put a brand new one down so that the wheelchairs can come down. But it's just that thing of a load of people coming together and then having a tea and talking a load of bollocks.
Yeah.
But it's just that community feeling.
And that's what being human is all about, isn't it?
Based on make your money, sod off.
Yeah. And then and the digital life, if you then go home, you've got all these amazing options of going online and talking to people or watching a film, but you're actually still on your own with a screen in front of you. There's nobody. I mean, here I'm sitting here in my house upstairs with a camera and a screen, and there are people typing. I can see them typing. Well, I can't see them typing. I can see the results of them typing. But now that you phoned in, I feel like the show is going properly because there's a real person to interact with, not just me reading somebody else's words, but we're actually...
Well, I phoned in because as soon as you said you didn't have any videos, I thought, let's just...
help him along.
But I'm one of these people who I do like to go to church or chapel on Christmas Eve. But I think it's more for the theatrics.
Right.
Because I'm one that believes you don't really have to go to church or chapel every week if you are a good person. Like I have found in life, and the older that I get, this is getting reinforced every single year. But some of the most evilest people that I've come up against. Or I go to church on the weekends, and I think out of everybody, I just can't get over the hypocrisy of people who will spend all week making somebody else's life a misery, but they don't see it because they go to church. Yes.
I suppose that's, I mean, part of the church, the Catholic Church, isn't that part of their, not saying that's part of their thing, but they sort of have the get out of jail thing where you just go and confess your sins and then it's okay. Now, for genuine religious people, that may have a much more meaningful thing, and it may be that they get something out of it. But for a cynical person, can think, oh, that's quite handy. I can have an adulterous affair over there. I can make that bloke's life really miserable. I can steal from him. But I'll go to the church and just say, oh, look, I've done all these bad things. Say 3 Hail Marys and I'm on my bike. For somebody cynical, that they may just use that. But I think, that is part of human nature as well, isn't it?
Well, I've got two cats, and I've had them for 4 years, and I'm convinced I got them just as an excuse not to go back to Cardiff to Christmas.
Really?
Oh, I can't go.
I can't go. Got to feed the cats.
I've got the cats to feed, So because it had got to the point where I would go down to my sister's and we'd do the Christmas Day food, and then we'd just sit there and watch the TV.
Yeah.
And I sort of think, for me, Christmas is over at 3:00, and
once the Queen has done her thing. I wonder if the Queen will do a Christmas message. Presumably she will.
Well, I've got a feeling it might be the last one she'll do.
But yeah, it may well be. So go back to this thing about living in London then for a minute. Why do you continue to live in London? Why do you not get out? Come down to Worthing. Go down to the coast. Or go back to Wales. Or why? What keeps you in London, one of the most expensive cities to live in?
Well, I went for a job about 2 weeks ago, and I got called in for the interview, and it was to do videography for a hospice where my friend died a few weeks ago. So I thought, oh, maybe this is a sign, so I'll apply for this job. So I got an interview, and they were quite impressed, and I didn't get the job, and it freaked me out about going into a full-time job again, because I've been self-employed now for for 5 years. But what it's taught me over the last week is life can change for the better. And I think I had got into the rut of this is what my life is, and I'm now trying to conserve that energy in order to make the next leap. And it could be just moving 2 miles down the road, or it could be coming down to Worthing, because Worthing to me reminds me of a bit like Wales in the 70s, in a good way. What
was Wales like in the 70s that Worthing is like now?
Well, half day closing. You could go down the street. You could have a chat with 20 people that you knew from the gardening club or from the amateur.
I don't recognise Worthing from that, I have to say.
Sort of come and knock on the door. Have you got any sugar? Or I've just popped over for a cup of tea. Let's go and sit in the garden. That type of friendliness community, and that's what I felt when I've come down. Whereas in London, everybody's just here either to come to visit the place, or they are here to make the money, and then they're too exhausted to do anything outside of work.
Yes, and yet you've got everything on your doorstep, and it's all a bus ride or a tube ride away. I mean, that was the thing I found. I found it was in the end, when I was working, in order to do the training and then pay for that, there was no time. and
Yeah.
you could go to the cinema, you could go to the theatre, and I just didn't do anything. As you said, it was that get up,
Well,
go to
also
work, do the training, whatever, then go to bed, and repeat and repeat and repeat, and breathing in all that awful air.
I can't remember the last time that I went to go and see a film, but I remember it cost me £15 for the privilege.
To go to the cinema.
Yeah. I went to the theatre a couple of weeks ago, and I was amazed I managed to get a seat for £15, but I was upstairs in the furthest seat. You know, I could have gone up into the attic.
Yeah, gosh.
And so I'm starting to think, what the hell am I doing here? But it's trying to make that next step. And I find that for me, I'll talk about something for a year or two, and maybe in the next week you'll sort of give me a call, and I'll just suddenly say out of the blue, oh, you know, that house at the end of your street, well, I'm in it. I'm living it.
Well, this is the thing. I think a lot of people are very frightened about changing their life, even if their life is in a rut, and yet it can't really be much worse. I mean, I think you have to be brave. Of course, nobody wants to. I mean, I would love to move. But at the same time, I actually enjoy where I am and the freedoms I've got, and the fact that now I've got my van, the world is my oyster. And I see these beautiful houses and you think, oh, I'd love to live there, and I'd love to live there with all that ground and all that. But I often think at the same time, but if I did live there, I would be so busy on that bit of land and in that house doing things to it that I would not really have time to actually go around and explore everywhere. So in a way, I feel I'm even though my house is cold, it's falling to bits in places. It's a lovely place. I love it, and the van has given me that freedom to go, and the videos have given me the freedom to just go. Do you know what? This is what I'm going to do. And I think you do need to be a bit more brave, Sean, and just
What's that saying that life is always better on the other side?
The other man's grass is always greener.
Yeah. Now, what's quite strange is your life is the life that I would swap with for tomorrow, because I love your house.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love my house too, and I'm thrilled with it.
The only thing I would change is I'd go and just dump the house in the middle of a field, and I've said this to you.
Yes.
But I quite like that thing of sort of jump in a van and go off somewhere, or clean in this thing. So, but for somebody else, that could be seen as a step backwards.
Oh, I'm sure there's plenty of people who watch my stuff.
I grew up in a house that didn't have any central heating. I grew up in a house where there was frost on the inside.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people can be watching my stuff and think that it's a bit of a step backwards. Look at that. Why do you chop those logs and all that just to get the SE going to warm up and then cook your dinner when I can just press a button? But to me, that is the whole... for me, the thing about the ease of life is we're becoming too easy. I need to feel that I've earned my dinner, even if that means the only way I've earned my dinner is by chopping logs to heat it up on the essay. I've earned that, rather than it's just turn a thing. Now, that's just me. Everybody will have a completely different thing. I mean, most people don't live anywhere like how I live. But I don't want, you can go and stay in some of these lovely Airbnbs, and you can see how other people live, the way they've decorated them out with lovely fluffy this and beautiful furniture like that. And it's nice, especially in Airbnbs, because it's not lived in at all, because actually it's devoid of personality, because there's it's just for guests, and so it's always in that state of absolute cleanness. But if I lived in there, it would soon be messy and
Well, you've just triggered a thought in my head of something that I've seen, where somebody said that we have these things to make our lives easier, but we seem to be far more depressed than we were in the past. That could be because we've got far too much time on our hands. Because back in the day, a meal would take an hour to put together, whereas these days it can take 3 minutes and the food's done. But you just fill it with more stuff that doesn't really mean, because I don't enjoy doing sort of further washing up, but I would rather do it than put it into the machine. Therefore, I can understand when you said in your video months ago I enjoy standing by the sink and just doing the food dishes because it grounds me.
I love pottering. I absolutely love pottering in the house. If I sit down and watch something, I can get up from that and think, oh, I've just wasted an hour doing nothing. Whereas it's that sense of doing something, the sense of achievement. And if it's just washing up or putting things away or mopping the floor, it keeps me moving. It keeps me thinking. I tend to do a lot of thinking when I'm on my feet, rather than just switching off and watching the telly or sitting on Facebook or all these things that people do for hours on end. And to me, that's the worst. Their life has slipped away. And
I do find that I will talk a subject to death, and then all of a sudden I'll just go really quiet. And what's happening then is I'm actually thinking through. So when I went to Manchester, I spoke about going to Manchester for 6 months, and I just shut up about it, and within a week I was there.
Excellent. Well, that's the way to do it. Listen, I better let other people have a chance to call in.
Somebody could be knocking at your door next week.
Well, come in for a cup of tea. We'd love to see you. Come down and do the show.
Yes.
You have to come down and do the show. I'm sure we can put you up somewhere.
Well, I could sleep in the van.
You could sleep. Well, I wouldn't at this time of day. I did sleep in the van the other night, actually, at Julia's parents'. But it's actually under the covers. It's all right. But I'm sure I can do a put me up. Yeah, come down and do the show. We'll arrange it sometime. Anyway, nice to talk to you, Sean.
Speak soon.
Yeah, take care. Bye. There we are. Sean James Cameron telling us just how bleak it can be in London. One of the most energetic cities in the world, but at the same time, the opposite is also true. Lots of interesting comments coming in, which is absolutely superb, and thank you very much. Emily Champion says, I go to church. Am I evil? No, of course you're not evil. Why would you be evil? Small towns and villages are the best, says Jackie Lowe. You have tons to do then. I guess, if you immerse yourself within the community. Now, it's funny that, isn't it? Because I've never been one to. I suppose when I moved into Worthing, we had the children. We were bringing them up, and it was so busy bringing the children. And if you're self-employed in a creative fashion, like I was, you're so busy doing stuff. And if your work involves meeting lots of people, which generally mine has done, perhaps less so now, but when I was entertaining, you're continually meeting new people and entertaining and doing things and what have you, and with the filming and stuff, I didn't feel I needed an established community because I had that. But as the children have grown and left, and now I'm on my own, my community, of course, is here, I suppose, which is why I love doing the show. But also, I am somebody who is quite happy being on my own quite a bit. I do talk and sing to myself rather a lot. Colonel Cragrati says it's important to interact with other people regardless of who you are and where you live. Absolutely. So I think that's going back to that shop thing about that. Shops are going to just be just empty, devoid of life, really, which would be a shame. I mean, I'm sure some people will have conversations as they can't get something to work, but it will be a shame to go down that road, I think, personally. David Vads just mentioned that Heidelberg in Brentford, where I used to work as a security guard many years ago, has been sold to a housing developer. That is very sad to hear. But there you go. Emily Champion says, I live in London Borough. I was more miserable being employed. I have more interaction with people now by working from home. Well, that's fascinating. So there we are. That's a turnaround on the situation. I guess there'll be a lot of people who've been experiencing working from home. I wonder how many of those actually want to go back into an office. Is it the commute or is it the office banter that they prefer not to be involved with? Who can tell? Jamie Boy says hello, 1995. Hello, Vobes and Peeps. Lovely to see you, which is great. Linda Kane says cinema tickets here in Worthing can be as little as £3. You must go to the cinema in Worthing. Is that at the Dome or at what's the theatre? Oh, come on, Vobes. What's the name of the theatre in Worthing? The what's the name theatre? There's the Ritz, isn't there? That used to. I don't know whether the Ritzy Theatre does it. The one in Union Place. And then next you've got the main theatre, which is, I know the name so very well, but I can't bring it to mind, so whatever. Never mind all of that. Emily Champion saying that Sean is moving into Vobes Place next week. Well, I jolly well hope not. Ray of Hope says there's a Women's England Footy International on at the moment. England are winning 18-0 and there are still 10 minutes to go. Thanks, for bringing a little touch of sport to the Vobes Show. Not that that's my subject. I like keeping fit and I like walking. I do enjoy cycling when I do it, but I don't really have any interest whatsoever in watching other people do it. I've never understood that. I've never understood football, why people will sit there in their sports gear, eating unhealthy food, drinking oversweetened drinks, and cheer on people who are fit, kicking a ball about, but the people watching will dress in sports gear and be incredibly overweight and sit on a sofa all day. Never quite understand. I just don't understand. You know, people have said to me, don't you like football? I said, I'll have a game. I'll have a kickabout. I'll enjoy a game and actually do it. Not for money or anything like that, just for a laugh, for a half an hour or something. But I want to sit and watch other people do it. I don't see the sense. But obviously some people do, and they're, of course, entitled to it. Ernie, he says, 54 years in London. I made the jump to leave London. Born and bred, been there and done it, etc. I am now, dare I say, living the dream. And I hate that phase. Good for you, Ernie. And I've been down and sampled some of your dream. And I have to say, it is absolutely divine. And well done for you for making that jump. Your house is stunning. And especially with all the restoration work that you're doing to it, and you're in a piece of the countryside, you will live to 199 now that you've got rid of the smoke from your lungs and the pressure and all the rubbish from London. Absolutely. Well done, you. I think that's brilliant. Connaught, the lovely Julia, has just reminded me it's the Connaught Theatre. Of course it is. Thank you very much. The old brain, you know. Linda Kane says you have to go in the afternoon with all the oldies. Oh, at the Connaught. I remember going to the Connaught Theatre one time to watch something that was about Laurel and Hardy. It was a theatre production, and I was very excited. I had the tickets, bought the tickets, went to see this thing, and it was, I think it was sponsored by Southern Arts or one of the arts boards. And it starts off, you know, and the place was packed with people in their 70s and 80s. I was, you know, I guess I must have been then in my 40s. And the place was packed. We all settled down. It started off with these two actors who came on, and they did a Laurel and Hardy scene from one of the films. And they did pretty much verbatim. They were pretty okay with it. I'm very precious about people who do Laurel and Hardy impersonations because nobody seems to quite capture it. They do all the cliche movements, but there's no life when I see it. There's no. I mean, some people do people very well, impersonators and impressionists and things, but they were just a bit off, but it was okay. It was part of the theatre. Anyway, so the play goes, you start off with this, and I thought, oh, it was great, and they used a bit of the music, and you're getting into the mood, and then suddenly it stopped, and you realise that these were, the play was about two travelling actors who played the lookalikes of Laurel and Hardy. They stopped and they were talking about a bit of a routine that had gone wrong. It says, no, it doesn't work like this. It goes like this. And you realise that you'd been watching them rehearsing. So that was all right. But then as it went on, you started to realise this wasn't about Laurel and Hardy or about the business of acting and being Laurel and Hardy, which would have been a fantastic and interesting play. This was actually about two blokes who were gay and were having problems being gay, and one of them was having an affair with somebody else, and suddenly this was nothing to do with Laurel and Hardy at all, and there was this whole emotional slanging match, and they were talking about sort of gay issues and things, which would have been absolutely fine if that's what you knew you were going to watch. But after the break, they had an interval, and I would say about 30% of the audience were left. Most of them had left, because it wasn't about Laurel and Hardy. It wasn't an insight into the world of Laurel and Hardy, or the difficulty or the fun of playing Laurel and Hardy, or anything to do with theatre and all. It was about these two blokes who started to, and that's right, one of them had AIDS, if I remember rightly, or had something like that, and was dying. It went from being, oh, this looks interesting, into, this is totally not what I feel comfortable watching, because it's not what I intended to see. And, oh my God, that was the most missold thing. But I realised how they'd got their money to put it on from Southern Arts, or whoever it was, the Arts Funding Council, because, of course, it was about somebody who was gay, and they had AIDS in it, and it ticked enough of the boxes to get the funding, because they were, it wasn't, if they'd just gone as two actors and said, we want to do a thing about Laurel and Hardy and the difficulty of playing Laurel and blah, 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 and this is our play, that would be a commercial success, I'm sure, they wouldn't have got any funding. So it would never have happened. And I remember just walking out thinking, no, this is not right. This isn't how theatre should be done. You shouldn't be duped. I mean, there's absolutely no problem whatsoever with anyone putting on a thing about two gay guys being actors and having a problem. But if that's what you're going to go to watch, if that's the thing, it was just missold. Anyway, so that was I think that was the last thing I ever saw at the Connaught. After that, I never went again. You see, it's funny, you can be put off, can't you, by something you see at the theatre. Jeff and Mandy is talking to Daniel. Mike Stevens, hello to you. Nice to see you. Bringing an audience under false pretenses. Yes, absolutely. Because word obviously gets round, and it doesn't do them any good. Mr. Mocky says it's all about box ticking these days. Look at the BBC, for example. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if you look at any adverts on the television now, any adverts at all that shows a family, you never see an oldish white person, a straight white man. They seem to have been erased. Not quite sure why. You just never see them. There might be other members of that same colour group, but the husband has been replaced with somebody else. It's all very suspicious, because that's not a fair representation of the country. Linda Kane says, going to see Tosca live screening next Wednesday. Now, I'm not quite sure what Tosca is. Is that like tapioca? Is it Tosca? Is it like I did go and see it. I remember going to Brighton. I don't know if it was at the Brighton Theatre. It was somewhere, or it might have been in the Comedy Club. It was somewhere, and it was brilliant. It was these three guys making soup on stage. They made soup, but it was physical theatre. Absolutely, it took about an hour, and it was just routine stuff, and it was pretty silent. I don't think they said anything, but it was hilarious. The routine, and they chopping stuff and throwing stuff and doing all this, and in the end, they made this soup. You could smell it as they made it on stage, and then they came round, and you got a little bit. Or certain numbers. I mean, I remember trying it. It was lovely. And they did that for however many nights. And it was a touring company, and they'd go around doing this thing. And I thought that was absolutely, I was into physical theatre and routines and clever stuff and jokes and, all of that. Brilliant. So there we go. That's all good. Let's just scroll down there. So how are we doing? Oh, blimey, almost at the end. So now, before we go, my next talking point for tonight's show is what food disagrees with you? What food if you have, will it make you have a horrible reaction? Julia and I were, Julia was celebrating her 40th, and it was very nice to spend some time. Very kind of her to invite me to a little soiree of friends. And the thing was, there was a bottle of Prosecco. So somebody brought that. We were having some of that. And I know that my ex, Harriet, didn't like Prosecco. She liked champagne. She could eat champagne. But she couldn't drink Prosecco because it would make her sick. And, well, I had some of this, and then within about an hour, I was feeling really rough. And then today, I've been running and having the squits. Yes. Yes, madam. No, stop mucking about. Yes. And that's not been very... just before the show started, I had to go and run. And I thought, oh, golly, that's a bit much. But it's been on and off. And everything else I've eaten today has been pretty normal and not had any reaction to. So I put it down to this Prosecco. But I'd be interested to know if you've had... If there's a food... Fish. I'm not good with fish. That would get rid of me. Fish. Ooh. Let's find out who is on the line, ringing in. Hello, welcome to the show.
Hello, Richard. It's Terry from Southwater.
Oh, marvellous. Hello, Terry. Good to hear from you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm quite well. A bit croaky tonight.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I better have a sip of water. I think it's all this talk about Omeron, all that business.
Oh, yes, Omeron. Omeron, wherefore art thou, Omeron?
Yes,
I'm over here.
Yeah, makes a change from Peppa Pig, I suppose.
Well, that's true. Forgive me. So what food disagrees with you, Terry?
Spinach.
Spinach? What happens when you eat spinach?
I think it's not so much the physical reaction, but I had a bad experience when I was, strangely enough, the first couple of years of my education was spent in a convent.
Oh.
Yeah.
Does it bring back memories then?
Yeah, because the nuns who were in their full habits in those days, like nuns on the run.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah, very, very intimidating they were for a young child of about 6.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that. This is a story that it would be worth pursuing and investigating in another show, being brought up in.
Yes. Anyway, the link with spinach is that they used to have this very large allotment type garden. To save money, they used to grow their vegetables for the school lunches.
Right, good idea.
And
healthy.
Regularly, about once a week when it was in season, spinach was served up. And when it arrived on the plate, it wasn't. It was accompanied by potatoes and something else. Fish on Fridays, as you would say in Catholic terms.
Yes.
They only eat in those days. They used to eat fish on Fridays. So the spinach that used to arrive on the plate was always very gritty. And I don't think they'd washed it properly in preparation.
Right.
But,
so it had a bit of gravel in it, did it?
But I used to end up with sort of very gritty spinach in my mouth, which I didn't really like very much.
No, I'm sure nobody would like. And were you forced to eat everything on the plate?
Yes. You had one of these nuns, they looked rather reminiscent of penguins by today's standards. They had the sort of the white headgear. Yeah.
So they were very strict, were they?
Oh yeah, yes. It's eat your greens, dear.
Isn't it funny? There they are. I mean, you often hear this, don't you? There they are. They're working the magic for God, and yet you often hear how awful these institutions of like nuns and things were. My mother was at an orphanage run by, I think that was run by nuns, and she said they were the most horrible and evil. She used to get locked for being naughty. She would be locked in the boiler room overnight down in the basement. She said it was very scary. And this was run by religious mob. It's like
I wasn't a boarding member. I was a sort of day pupil.
But you still had to eat your greens.
Yeah. But I was a bit slow backward in reading the first couple of terms I was there. And because of that, I was sat at the front of the class. These old style
desks,
flip-top desks, inkwells and all that.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, we used to have to read a book in unison. That was the whole class. And I used to lose my place from one line to another. And she had this long stick that she bent over her desk and used to sort of whack my finger when I was pointing to the wrong word.
Oh, my goodness.
So it's all a bit horrific.
Oh, golly. That does
but anyway, the thing
amazing.
About spinach is I couldn't, after I left there, I couldn't eat spinach for about another 20 years.
Right. Even if it was chopped, even if it was
a tin. You can actually, you used to be able to buy spinach in a tin.
Right.
And it was less bitter, so...
So can you eat it now? Can you eat spinach now?
No, I've still got that bad memory in the back of my mind.
Sean says that gritty spinach is down to it being harvested too late. So the nuns obviously didn't know what they were doing.
Yes, well, that's probably the technical answer. It wasn't about washing so much. It was
just the wrong season. They'd picked it out too late. Spinach and kale, says Mike Stevens, with apples make a great healthy juice. There you go. How lovely is that? Yeah, there you go. There you are. Well, that's interesting. We were coming to the end of tonight's show, Terry. Thank you for that. It's interesting about spinach. So you never turned into Popeye.
No, that was a good. Yeah, I used to enjoy that as a child.
Yeah.
Cartoon time, with what was that female character in it? I can't remember.
Olive Oil.
Olive Oil, yes.
Yeah. There you go.
Popeye I'm not too keen on olive oil actually either.
No, there we are. You'd never have made it in that cartoon, would you? Not like spinach. Don't like olive oil. Cool. I don't know. There'll be no future for you. Anyway, lovely to talk to you.
Cheers, then.
Take care. Thanks for calling in.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. There we go. That's Terry Banton finishing off. We're going to end any second now. Just read a couple more of your comments. Thank you so much for commenting. Sorry I haven't got to them all. Linda Kane, I just see them and just read as soon as I see them. Linda Kane says, my mother was brought up in a Catholic orphanage. They had to share bathwater and worse. Oh, my goodness. That's awful. Mark Burgess says, what's Prosecco made with? Is it grapes or is it perry? I don't know. That is a good question. It just had a weird aftertaste, and I've never. I mean, A, I don't drink alcohol very often anyway, and B, Prosecco, I'm never going to touch that again. I think both Julia and I made a vow never to touch that because she felt pretty grim after just one glass. So there you go. Trev's Travels by Narrowboat says, I love spinach wilted in butter. That sounds very nice. I have to say I do like spinach. So that's all good. And Daniel Watkins says, thanks, Richard. Take care, everyone. See you tomorrow evening. And that's true. I will be back tomorrow. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Do look after yourselves. Have a good rest of the evening. But from me for this hour, thank you for joining me. It's been fun. Back again tomorrow, same time, same place. But until then, and we will have videos in tomorrow's show, so that would be nice. Look after yourself. Bye for now.